completely different operation. So we need you to provide the personnel that you need. For me to say you need a meter and greeter, for me to say you need this, how many hours you need to work, how many employees you're going to have, whether you have a pool of employees that you pick from in order to what they call event staff or whatever you decide you want to call it. Maybe you have 50 people, and when there's big events, you can call those people in to work certain events. I don't know how that works, but I know that you have the expertise, Jim and Brian, about how that works, how that operates. And so working together internally, and then including the bargaining unit, personnel with respect to that, and our staff, come to us with what you need. We have to make a decision in which to provide you that. I think we need more staff. There's no question about that. How we provide that to you is something we have to decide here as a group. We've asked for this information, and thank you for putting this together. It was a long, arduous process to extrapolate all this information, both from Britt, from Sherry, and from Brian, and from you, Jim, and the rest of the staff. And so we need to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, that we can look at all the information so we have the totality of the circumstances to make a decision. But the bottom line is, if you peel away the onion, cut the apple in half, whatever analogy you want to use, we need to find some more staffing for you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple questions, and then I want to ask Jim Hunt a couple as well. Sherry, you had indicated, I think you had said for 2022, we had budgeted $635,000 for full-time, $224,000 for part-time, giving us a total of $959,000. That's current.
And that is just their salaries. I also budgeted their benefits as far as their FICA, their taxes, their payroll taxes.
So is that
Their benefits
is
are
that
in addition.
okay? So when you said we had a $1.2 million budget, Sherry, does that include all of the above, or do we then? What I'm doing is I'm doing the math. I'm adding up the full-time, part-time, and then the budget without benefits, just salaries only, tells me that we have $241,000 extra to pay for salaries, but that doesn't include benefits. So does that $1.2 million budget include the total umbrella? So we don't have, how much would the surplus be then to hire additional? And then I was going to move on to Jim's Hunt suggestions of what the additional requests or wants would be for hiring. So I'm trying to determine, and I'm sorry if that's.
The 1.2 million includes salaries, overtime, part-time salaries, para, FICA, Medicare, medical insurance to full-time, dental insurance to full-time, life insurance, short-term disability, long-term disability, unemployment compensation, healthcare savings per the contract, and employer deferred comp. So all the benefits are in that 1.2 million.
Okay.
And that includes full-time
And the
and the part-time.
And a lot of the part-time employees do not take advantage of the actual benefit package because of the costs associated to the
Yeah, if
part-time
they-
employee. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have the lead recs right now that are averaging about 30, 35 hours a week just because of short staff. But they haven't taken the health insurance because it's prorated.
So we need to have a discussion on that, I would think. And then I appreciate you clarifying that because it's not as much of a surplus then as I thought. But then going to, Jim, what you had prepared, I really appreciate reading through what a day, what a week looks like. It's very helpful. And I don't know, Mayor, is it appropriate for me to ask Jim to maybe come up and just,
Absolutely.
there were two different packets that went out, and I printed mine out before the rescanned copy. So I think it's on page 3 of the one you had submitted, on your page 3. 49, I'm on 45, so. So the suggestions as to the labor need breakdown, and then the current approved levels, and then the needed labor additions. Could you maybe just walk us through that as a council, and then maybe discuss a figure of what that might look like? I don't know if you have that in your mind or.
Yes.
Okay.
Morning, Jim.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. So on page 49, I broke this down and maybe a little wordy on this, but that center section, currently approved levels, those are the employees that we currently have, right? Administrative assistant, rec assistants, we have 5 FTEs. They happen to be a total of 10 part-times. In this document, we tried to move over slots of employees, employees 1 through 10, into a full-time equivalent to give it a little bit different math piece, so we wouldn't have to have a singular employee that can only work 5 or 6 hours a week take one of those 10 open positions. So we're doing the math differently so we can operate the business in a more efficient manner. Here are my suggestions for the labor. Utility workers, once we get the new utility worker online, we will be fully staffed in that area. Lead rec attendants, we currently have 2 that work part-time up to 35 hours. I feel we need to have 2 of those in a full-time position. Rec assistants, I think we need 10 full-time equivalents for that. That could be as many as, maybe not quite 1,000 as the mayor said, but it could be 25 or 30 different employees that we bring together to meet the needs of the business, not based on the hours we're restricted to, but what that person can work. Some people are retired, some people are students, and they all will fit into our needs based on our ability to schedule them properly to the business. Does that make sense to that aspect? Okay. An event coordinator, that's a new position that we haven't talked about. An event coordinator for us will be a significant point person with the individuals and the organizations that want to come book or that are booking events with our event center. They'll take them by the hand, they'll understand what the timing is, what their needs are, and be able to execute a plan with specific timing and make sure that we meet all of the needs of that individual client's unique request all the way from the beginning, after the sale, all the way through to the end. Currently, I'm doing this job, and I love that part of the job, but we're not able to pay enough attention to these clients to ensure that we will properly do the event every darn time. And a receptionist, administrative assistant, that is crucial, I believe, for having a body in that office, answering telephones, taking care of the guests and questions that walk in that front door, that we have a presence. I think oftentimes it should be on a weekend day because we have a lot of traffic, and then sprinkle in some midweek items in there.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I add on to
Counselor
that,
Paulson?
if you don't mind? Okay, so on the event coordinator, now wasn't that the beginning of your job title, event coordinator? Or did we change that? You have to refresh my memory.
That's right. My title is Event and Program Services Manager.
Manager, okay.
Yes.
So,
Brian, you want to tack on?
Yep, originally that was the title we were going for, but at a meeting similar to this, if you remember, we looked at that job description and everybody said, oh my goodness, how is one person going to do this job? We asked Tracy what his opinion was, and I think he listed out 8 positions, 9 positions that position was doing. So we broke it into 2 positions, changing the job descriptions.
thank you for refreshing my memory. So are you suggesting that an event coordinator, it would be one single person or maybe a combination of 2 individuals being able to work those, maybe some weekends, that's a lot of hours for one individual to handle and facilitate parties or tournaments or Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, there's 1.5 full-time equivalents that we're asking for in that, so we can piecemeal them together, one full-time and then another part-time to augment those odd hours or unique event dates.
So it could be up to 3 or,
No, so if a full-time equivalent equals 40 hours, we're asking for up to 60 a week. So
Okay.
we know we can definitely use a person for 40 hours. That's a no-brainer. That other half of an FTE will help augment on busy weeks or different things that we need to plug them in with bump and skate or with different events.
okay, got it. And then on the receptionist administrative assistant, I do feel that it would be extremely valuable to have somebody being able to answer the phone, or when the facility is being used, there sometimes happens to be questions and people try to find somebody, kind of like what Counselor Johnson was saying. Would that person be up in the office? Are you thinking more in that type of a capacity?
Primarily, yes.
And
So-
that they could be able to troubleshoot from that location, answer phones,
Yes,
answer
service, yes.
public questions right then and there?
Yes, from the office
From the office
particularly,
space.
because the consistency of that person being posted in there, the people on the ground handling the client's needs as events happen, different type of role in our
Sure.
opinion.
So, but the location, you would think that would be in that office space location, where then, if it would be students or adults or anybody that needed assistance, would be directed then to go upstairs, and there would be somebody there in order to help or assist them in their questions or to assist them in whatever it is that their needs are. Do we have any phones where they can pick up a phone and dial? We don't have any
House
in
phone,
guest
like a
service
house
phones or
phone.
anything like that. Would that be something, I don't even know if we have landlines. Would that be something that we should do, or should we just, could we post in the rooms if you need assistance, maybe on a plaque or something like that, that here are the numbers to call if there is, as I have seen that in my own experience, where someone's looking and they're going down the long corridor, down the locker rooms, or they're going upstairs to find someone. So maybe that would be of assistance, just here's the numbers that you need to call if you have a problem, or if you're in a ballroom and, some tech isn't working or something like that. But so that person would then be able to coordinate with your rec assistants or your utility workers what items would need to be done from the request that would come forward from anybody utilizing the facility. Is that kind of how you see the flow?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think about when we have events going on. This morning's a fine example. Minnesota Power is in our facility with 70 attendees, and Lakehead Constructor is there with, I think, 60. When they have an issue, I don't know that we want to do phone. We want a personnel there providing that assistance. So we can foresee the issues and make sure that the guest service and all of the things that they have ordered and paid for are taken care of properly and in a very timely, professional manner. So 2 different things, as you're indicating, Counselor.
And so just to tack on to what Counselor Paul says, in that same line of thinking, then we'll go to Counselor Freelieb and then back over to Counselor Johnson. We're touring these other facilities around, and I'm going to come to another question about the surveying of the other arenas, about their staffing levels, but I asked them what the importance of having personal contact immediately for anybody that comes into that facility. So going upstairs to the event coordinator, asking for that 1.5 full-time, I get that. But I think part of that process is moving forward. It's my perspective that if we take a look at somebody comes into this building, whether they've been there before, or they haven't been there before, they're coming in, they have a question to ask, or they have an answer, there's a meter and greeter right there at the entrance, inside, sitting at a desk, information specialist, or whatever it is, for part-time, providing that information based on the needs associated with whatever events are going on there, or non-events that are going on there. And some of these other arenas have that. They have somebody, that first contact. So with somebody, I'm interested in, geez, who do I talk to? You can go upstairs and talk to so-and-so, you know, or wherever that employee is. Or I need direction, how do I get here? Well, you gotta go this way, because there's no methodology, there's no direct contact with the general public for somebody for
first
meet
walk
and
in,
greet. And so I think that's important moving forward, that you look at that perspective, and there's been a lot of inquiries about that as well. And of course, the concession stand issue with respect to maybe putting some retail stuff in there, some shoelaces and hockey pucks or whatever. But the thing is have a meter and greeter available to give directions moving forward. How do we get here? How do we get there? Maybe it's not staffed all the time, but at least it gives the people, the general public, a contact immediately upon entering that facility. So, and I know, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying that many of those arenas, they, like, say for example, I'll give it outside of the arena setting, the hospital, they have volunteers that direct and direct, and some of these other arenas, they have volunteers that come in and direct and delegate, you know, where to go. So I'm not advocating that they be volunteers, I'm just saying that that service that's being provided is very important. They felt that it was important first contact when somebody comes in to get the proper direction on where to go or inquiry to make, and they can make that phone call to get their questions answered. So thank you for that, Jim.
That type of role, Mayor, it really helps in our customer service scores from our guests, right? If there's somebody they know they can go to, that's very important that our guests think and know that our guest service is right on spot.
And I know you had mentioned that before in casual conversation, so I just thought I'd bring that up too. So Councilor Friedlieb, and then over to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you very much for accumulating all this data and this information to provide recommendations to us today. And the thing that I'm pleased about as a community member is that there seems to be a renewed sense of spirit and optimism and positivity with regard to the dedication and commitment to the building. I think people realize it's a beautiful facility, it's a great place to work, and we want to maintain that level of commitment. And to be able to do so is to create an environment where you can as effectively and efficiently do your job and get that job accomplished for the community at large. And so that requires equipment from snow removal to shovels to snow blowers to whatever, vacuum cleaners and scrubbers and so on and so forth. You have to have that's going to be able to make it efficient and capable to get the job done. The sad part is that you're judged and critiqued by trivialities in the community, because if somebody walks in and sees a splot of ketchup on the floor, who's not doing their job? You know what I mean? And that's the troublesome part, is there's the public optics that you have to be aware of. And that's unfortunate, but that's a reality. And that's where we hear, like, what's going on there? How come this isn't being done? And so on and so forth. So it's important for us to determine what our needs are in personnel. And the reality is, it isn't what we offer to the community, it's who we offer to the community. And the people that are working there, like you and all of these people, are what's most valuable to this community and everybody coming to visit it. It's not the building itself. And that's what's critical. And that's what we're here for today, to determine who those people are that we need to add and assist what we already have in place, it seems. Whether we can get to the 9 that Tracy talked about, I doubt it, but we have to figure out a way to get the people we need in place. Like you say, it could be 25, 30 people that are mixed and matched to be able to serve the purpose of the business for that particular event that's going to be happening, correct?
Yes.
And just looking at it, you know, from a layman's point of view, is there a possibility, like we're talking about the importance of somebody that greets the public, it's a 0.5 position that we're looking at, could that be rolled into a full-time position to assist with the event coordination? Possibility, that's what I'm looking at, is somebody that I'd rather have a full-time employee there that greets the public and assists you in coordinating and organizing these things. So that's a thought that you might want to think about.
On that administrative assistant position, in my mind and in conversation with my bosses, we went back and forth on how many is the right number. And as we start our second quarter of business, we think that 0.5 is correct, but in the third or fourth quarter of 2022, we can grow, and we have to get to a position where we can grow and offer the service that our clients want, so they repeat. And how do we grow into it? not to put all of our, we don't want to explode our staffing because we don't need that at this point, but we need to grow with the business and be able to manage that business to the expectation of the city, of the residents, of the council, and of the team.
And so I'm more than willing to look at these recommendations, and you're gonna have to do the math, Sherry, to determine where we stand with
I
regard to
did.
what's budgeted as opposed to what revenue is coming in and what we can afford, piecemealing it into the point where we got the capacity we need to efficiently and effectively serve the public in that building, which I think we're doing as best as we can right now, but I hope we're not feeling so overwhelmed and overloaded that it's gonna affect our morale and it's gonna affect our positivity. I don't want that to happen, because it's obvious that there was an uptick in that people were excited about where they are, the jobs they have, and what they're trying to accomplish. So let's keep that rolling.
Hold
and
on.
consider the recommendations to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
I've had the thought as we're sitting here about that person that sits there. Eventually, the YMCA is going to have a person sitting at a desk for most of the day, and I just want to be, for us to be cognizant of that, excuse me, because what are our expectations of that person going to be when that starts happening? If people are there and they go to that person and it's a YMCA employee, how does that get directed? Do they say, you have to go somewhere else, or, so I just want to have that on the radar, because that's going to change the dynamics of that building a little bit, because that west entrance going up those stairs will then kind of become a primary entrance for the community as opposed to our customers. They'll be YMCA customers. And so just would like to put that on your radar, and how do we utilize that effectively after we figure out what our immediate needs are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. And Councilor Beyondich.
When you were touring, you had said something earlier that I just wanted to ask a question. When you were touring other arenas and convention centers, mentioning the person sitting there, did you ever inquire how they did things, or how they were able to work things around? Who was staffed how?
Well, some had contract workers, outside contractors that did some administrative work, did the concessions, did those kind of things. And others had employees that they hired on a temporary, part-time basis. Some of the meters and greeters were volunteers, and some were employed by the private contractor. But whatever capacity they were in, it was consistent that every single arena said it's very important. It's a very important piece to have a meter and a greeter in order to meet the public as they come into the building, to direct and delegate. And I didn't inquire as to their specific job descriptions, but they were relegated only to answering the phones, giving direction, notifying staff. Somebody say, hey, you got a spill over here. They'll go right to the meter, the greeter, and they call and say, we need a maintenance person over to do this, and they take care of that. So they can help facilitate the needs in an immediate manner by greeting the public and providing them information that they need, or making a correction or report something that a patron has indicated that would need to be done. Or if it's a first aid request, or whatever the case may be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I have a question for Sherry. Sherry, with the most recent retirement of our individual that worked both in Public Works and in the Park Department, is that included in that carryover money or not? Did that get dropped out? Because there's a halftime person, because they're working halftime in the MEC.
Very good question, Councilor Bearable. Before we were aware of this retirement, we already budgeted that position. It is part-time, both, the salary is split 50-50 between Park and Rec. So there's a full-time salary there.
Okay, but
And, yeah, that was one of our discussions with Brian Silver and Jim Hunt the other day, is how can we utilize that part-time that's already been budgeted for the IT Iron Trail.
But it's not actually in the personnel right now. Then
It is in the budget.
It's in the 2022 budget.
It's in the
But I
20.
don't see it listed here except a request for a receptionist, basically.
Oh, this is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's in there? Okay, I didn't see it in here, but maybe because he's asking for a receptionist, administrative assistant.
It's in the bigger book, Charlie,
Okay,
the main one, when we submit it to the state.
okay, all right, okay. That answers my question, thank you.
Okay, and no other lights on, okay. So looking at your spreadsheet with respect to the Untitled Motors Event Center staffing needs per event. You know, you got on a normal day, you've got 2 day shift utility workers, okay, 2 afternoon utility workers, 1 concession stand in operation with 2 concession stand workers on a normal day. That's what you have, right? So the day before an event, you know, you listed all out what you have right now. I mean, from my perspective, I mean, I don't think that's enough moving forward. I mean, you know, when you have 1 concession stand open, 2 concession stand workers, one's cooking food, one's trying to get product, one's working a cash register, and you got a line of 20 people waiting to get served. It's not enough, even if it's a normal day, because you don't know who's going to be coming there. Keep people coming here for practice, and you don't open on a normal day till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I guess, you know, this really is telling for me what you do now and what we really need in the future moving forward. So whatever, how staff work set out with respect to budget, with respect to needs, working with you to determine exactly how many personnel you need, how you utilize those personnel. I think that's a big challenge for you to work out for us to make a decision moving forward. But I think the common theme I'm hearing, I think, is that we need more staffing for you. So, Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, I was just going to say there were some folks in the audience who wanted to speak. I didn't know if you had seen them.
Yeah, we'll bring them up when we get done with this. Thank you very much, Councilor Johnson. Brian, you had something else.
Yeah, just want to point out, if you'll turn to page 37 of your packet, the staffing calendar, this is just the part-time calendar. Mayor, to hammer home your point of we need more bodies, council has approved us to hire 10 individuals. Now, those individuals, part-time individuals that we've hired are students, they're retirees, and a lot of them are people that are working a second job. So their hours are limited, or their availability is limited. So what we've done on this calendar on page 37 is broken down per day what we need. Now, the building dictates how our part-time staff is scheduled. On days when there's less going on, we obviously need less staff. But if you look at a day like Tuesday the 11th, tomorrow, remember, I have 10 part-time staff to pool to fill these positions. The mayor wisely pointed out that at a high school hockey game, we had a line nonstop throughout the entire game at both of our concession stands because we only had 1 cash register open. So we really need to have 2 cash registers open in both concession stands. That's 4 people. Now, when you're handling money, you should not be handling food. So you have to have somebody bringing you food. So now I need 1 person bringing the food to each cash register. That's 8 people. We also have a scoreboard that we have to run. The video scoreboard is not set up for a volunteer to run. Councilor Paulson was up there with me before the figure skating show, and she was going, oh my goodness, this is a lot more complicated than I thought it was. It is a computer that's also hooked up to our city network. So it needs to be a staff member. So there's another person. Bathrooms are always an issue, and we have a lot of bathrooms in this facility. So we need somebody who is checking those toilets, policing all of that throughout the game. There's 10. Oh, what happens now? That's just the arena. What happens if we have an event also going on in the event center? I've already dedicated all 10 of my part-timers who may or may not be available to work that day due to their schedule. We have a wonderful high school student who we have employed. She is an incredible worker. She's also a winter sport athlete. So guess what? she's not available to work for us except for pretty much Sunday, so I'm already knocked down there. Then I have some people that it's second jobs, well, they may not be available. So my number of staff to draw from to fill these, what I needed for tomorrow until the high school had to reschedule the game, I needed 11 part-timers working for us tomorrow evening. I didn't have 11 part-timers to pull from. That's why we need to change our mindset from number of bodies to full-time equivalents. So that's what I wanted to say. I'll turn it over to others now.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Just one moment, please. Just one moment. So what I'm looking for is getting back to the answer, the question that Councilor Beyondich had. You know, part of the request was to do a quick survey, a short telephone survey of the other arenas to determine how they staff their personnel and how many they have. Did we conduct that? Okay, and what was the result of that?
Thief River Falls is done by contract. They have a contract with a different firm that runs their facility.
they
And Duluth
contract-
has city employees.
Yeah, they're not city, but they,
Duluth has city employees.
Duluth has, yes, we know that, and the other's contractors. So there's a mixed bag.
Correct.
Thank you
Correct.
very
And
much.
I think when I spoke to Bemidji, that's the one I would think that I was going to allude to. They actually have their Convention and Visitors Bureau is the one that sits at the booth.
Right.
That they are the ones that are responsible for housing the booth. They bring all the materials, they bring the desk, they bring the people, they bring the whole. I don't know that we'd ever have that partnership with our chamber or our visitors bureau, but they are the ones that sit there and do that.
That's very good analogy. Yep, thank you. And I think Bob Fitzgerald alluded to that from Cross Anderson with respect to that. So good. Thank you for that, Britt. So before we go to the audience, let's go to finish the discussion with the council, and then anybody else wants to come speak and give their perspective, you're welcome to do so. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go quickly. Brian, based on that, how many full-time equivalents then, if we're not talking bodies, but we're talking FTEs, what is that number?
I would refer you back to the document that Jim had put together on page 49, that we, for our part-time equivalents, that we go with 10 part-time, that we go with the equivalent of 10 full-time employees. Now, I'm not as worried about the budget with this as you may be or as Sherry may be, because these staff are not guaranteed hours. It is the building that dictates how many hours that they will get. Because if you referred back to that calendar, you see, oh, there's some days that you only have 2 people working for 4 hours, but there's other days that you have a lot of people working. And when I'm saying that the building is dictating how many people are working, if you flip to page 51, have provided you a calendar of events just in the event center. This does not include anything on the arena side of things. Now you'll see that we have many different things. Mondays are renters that are doing training sessions. A lot of the weekday stuff are training sessions. Of these events that are on here, each one of those blocks, 3 of those blocks are things that would have occurred in the Miners Memorial Building. So you see we have a lot more coming in. Well, when we have a block on this page, we really need to have one of these part-timers there. So on days where there's nothing there, we don't need the part-timers there. So the building's going to dictate. Well, when there's something scheduled, there's revenue coming in that pays for that person.
Sure, and I understand that. I guess I'm trying to just put in my brain, and then from a budgetary standpoint, what we have current now, well, minus people that are, maybe out or whatever, what we had said is 10 bodies up to 25 hours or 30 hours?
Up to 20 hours
Up to 20 hours.
per
So
week.
then we would be, in theory, because of one FTE is 40, correct? So we would be doubling that amount to 20. Is that, in theory, what?
In theory,
In theory.
if you held us to the body count.
Right, well, even the FTE count,
Yes.
though, I mean.
Correct.
You know, I guess I'd like to understand how you're shuffling, I mean, that's a big chore as it is, shuffling bodies and schedules. But the main thing is, like what you said, is to make sure that the building will dictate how many and when you need the bodies there. I'm trying to understand, from a budgetary standpoint, what you're asking versus what we have budgeted. But if they're staying at 40 hours, we're really asking for an additional 10.
Yes, we're asking for 20 altogether.
Altogether.
But we've already budgeted for 10. So we're asking for another 10 part-timers.
And that is not in our budget.
No, none of this is in our budget, this list that Jim
But we're doing
brought.
better,
We are doing much better than we thought.
we're less in the hole than what we thought we were
yes.
going to be in the
In
hole.
fact, we're probably going to break even. That's my opinion.
Okay,
I'd like to back up to that 9 months ago. I think Sherry was the biggest skeptic, if you look back at our council meetings, that she was the first one to say, this building, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. And for her to say, I think we can do this, is a big change, you know.
absolutely.
So the fact that she's saying, I think we can, and that she understands that the concession stand, and we're still working on our sales, because we finally have 1 month of concession stand being open, that we can come to you with dollar amounts now. We know that on weekends, especially during tournaments, this last weekend, we made $8,000 this last weekend in the concession stand, that these staff paid for themselves and more,
That's fantastic.
that we can justify. And if we would have had more staff, could we have made more? Maybe. We don't know that yet, and we will find that out when we have more staff. You know,
And I think just to wrap it up, that's all I wanted to know, is what your need is, so that when we go and decide on this, that we understand we're giving you what you're asking for, with the caveat that the building schedule
Dictate
will
their schedule.
dictate their schedule. Thank you.
And real quick, before we go to Counselor Bearable, it's about customer service. It's all about customer service, because if you have the right customer service, your staffing levels are going to provide the necessary needs in order to generate additional revenue with respect to that. So it's all about being professional, moving forward in the approach. We only limit you to 10 people. So this request for additional 20 full-time that just makes sense for us to move forward with. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, I happen to agree with that concept, and here's the reason why. If you've ever been to conventions and stuff and go there to particular places, the repeat business is what counts. If we screw up this first year, we're going to lose that repeat business. I'm looking at this calendar, there's a lot of repeat business already in here that would come the next year. So if we take it in, I won't say what I was going to say, but if we take a view that we shouldn't go in the hole this first year, we're doing the wrong thing, because we will lose these other events to someplace else if we do not provide the service this first year. And if you get add-ons in here, which could happen anytime during a month, somebody can come and tell you, I'm not sure in here, maybe I missed it, but I know the Chamber of Commerce is going to be doing an event, aren't they? I don't know, the printing is kind of small, so I think they're on this calendar, but I didn't quite see it yet, because I just saw it in a news flash that I got from the Chamber. So I'm assuming it's on here, Brian. But that's my philosophy on this, being in business for 40 years. When I was in business, when you go to events and stuff, if you want to have the event repeat, they better have the service the first year. If they don't, you find someplace else.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. So I'd like to bring members of the audience, but we have still some more discussion by the council. Counselor Paulson.
I'm really sorry.
Nope.
I just have one question more for Sherry. So on the part-time, so if we go to 20, so that would be however many FTEs are requested, 10, okay. And you're budgeting for all of the full benefit package for those part-time employees, but most of them are not taking the prorated
Some of the
package.
health insurance, yeah, I did not budget the health insurance on them because I don't have anybody that has signed up.
Okay, so
Because
that's.
it's prorated.
We can take that out of there, that you've not put that in the budget.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to answer some of your questions here. So if
Go ahead,
we
Sherry.
Go ahead, thank you. If I go to Jim Hunt's paper on page 49, he's requesting 2 utility workers. 2 more will cost this budget $162,000. That includes salary, payroll taxes, and benefits. To bring the 2 lead recs up to full-time, it's going to be an additional $50,000 for that. So that'll be another $50,000 that wasn't budgeted, because that would include, mainly the bulk of it will be the medical and dental benefits, $5,000 in salaries more annually, which is nothing. An event coordinator, be another $102,000, that's full-time with all the benefits. So you're talking $514,000 more. Now, I personally would go a little, I mean, they'd have to really convince me why you needed 2 more utility.
Where did you see the utility workers? It's not on this list.
Yeah, we're not,
Asking for 8 full-time.
That's how many we have.
Already have.
we already have
No,
that.
I budgeted 6,
We have 8 full-time
6,
utilities.
8. Oh, right, the 2 newbies.
Yes.
We have the 2 ice plant managers.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, so my mistake.
Okay.
Sorry about that, I almost gave you a heart attack. So let me take that out of there then. Yeah, a little better. Hang on, bear with me here.
And I'll let you figure that out, but, I guess my point in asking that quick question, that didn't turn out quick, was if they don't take advantage of those benefit packages, does that roll over then, or does it drop off?
When you say rollover,
Like roll over to the next fiscal year, so we have a cushion,
no.
so it just
Yeah.
drops off? Okay, thank you.
So, the
So
question,
Go ahead.
you have the information? No, okay, please continue.
$352,000. Now, if you look on page 43, the original agenda packet was page 39, the concession stands have already made $35,400. We haven't put all of, that was safe to say, that was probably more accurate. That's 16% of those 10 part-timers' salaries. They're already making 16%
Okay.
just out of the concessions. So I just see that probably paying for the bulk of their wages and their salaries.
Okay, thank you. And as these new big events come forward, you're going to be generating some additional revenue with respect to that. So for what we charge at the Hunter Motors Event Center, for what we charge, we better have professional, top-quality service. Because we charge a premium based upon past rental fees. So we want to make sure that we provide the professional staff that's needed to answer Councilor Bearable. We got to make sure that these people are going to come back and that we have a professional organization. Somebody could, boy, that was a great experience at the Iron Train Motors Event Center. They were top quality, great service. Whatever we needed, they were there right away. They answered our questions. That's what you want to see. We're not getting it when we just give you 10 full, 10 part-time employees. You need more. It's a request is well-founded, so we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do moving forward. We can make a motion. This is a special meeting to move forward, not wait till the council meeting tonight. We can make motions right now, moving forward, whatever that motion is going to be to allow staff to work together these projections to add these personnel together. We can do that at this meeting. Let's put a hold on any other additional information from the council. So, sir, you had your hand up. Would you want to come forward? I know you've been patiently waiting.
utility workers. at the
And
NAC
and you
currently.
and you are Mr. Pettinelli?
I am Mr. Pettinelli, yes.
Thank
In case
you.
any of you don't know me. I'm not real good at this. I'm better at one-on-one, but I'm gonna try to let you know, give you some information to think about while you're making this decision. In the beginning, you guys made reference to the miners. I heard all my life that the two guys at the miners did nothing until I worked there. The miners got in the shape it's in because it was very understaffed throughout its whole entire life. We don't want to make that mistake here. You guys put together a beautiful building. With that beautiful building comes lots of labor. It's set up to burn labor. The parking lots, the grass, the mistakes that were made there. We don't have enough water coming out of the back room to flood the rinks. It's 4 times the labor than it was at the miners. So unfortunately, there's some changes that were made that create a lot of labor. And I guess I just wanted to make sure you all understood that. And with a building that comes at that level, you know, our ice should come at that level. Our people that are serving you a hot dog should come at that level. And I'm glad to hear that you're understanding that. You know, when this meeting first got called, the rumor mill started like crazy, you know, like, we're gonna squeeze things down here. And it can't happen. It can't be squeezed down. It's gotta be accelerated along with that building. But if you wanna do the same thing to that building as happened to the Miners Memorial Building, don't blame employees, blame understaffing and understaff it, and it will happen. So I gotta leave. I gotta go back to work because I have obligations there. That's why I wanted to speak. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pettinelli, and well said. You hit everything right on point with the old Miners Memorial Building moving forward, and I would apologize on behalf of myself because I was the one who called this meeting, and the goal and objective wasn't to to start a rumor mill that we were trying to squeeze.
It was out there.
It's actually the opposite. We want
And
to find out.
I'd like to tell you
how we
all,
can do
you know,
that.
I work with the utility workers. We all work together. I'm very proud of every one of them.
Yep, they do
Thanks.
great work. Thank you, Mr. Pettinelli. Anyone else? Okay. Sherry, anything else?
No, I'll wait till the end here.
Okay, thank you. Britt?
Mayor, I do want to point out, I mean, we've really focused on the concession stands and the revenue generating portion of this building, but I would want to point out that ability to add people only allows us to do so many more things. Page 25 of the new packet that went out, the rescan packet, gives you a list, gives you an idea of what we have tasked the utility workers that they have to do every single day. There's 60 items on that list that we tell them they have to clean, and that's if nothing's happening in the building. So now you add a game, and every single one of them will tell you popcorn is the bane of their existence. They hate popcorn because it gets everywhere. So you add in one game, and now they have to do all those 60 things plus pick up popcorn. They can't stand it. But if we can add on some extra people that can help those utility workers focus on getting this building clean and get that ice level back to, like Mr. Pettinelli said, back to what it needs to be, get these locker rooms back to what they need to be, get this building turned around quickly after that game, so the next morning when those walkers are standing there at 6 a.m. in the morning, waiting for those doors to open, get on that walking track, and get back to open to the standard it needs to be quickly. That is the goal and the objective of adding these extra people on, is to get that building to looking to the level we want it to look at all times.
Thank you, Britt. I think we're on the same page with respect to that. I mean, looking at when in the very beginning, when we talked about this, we said, well, geez, are we going to add, maybe we have to add 2 more full-time staff. And some of us were thinking, man, that's not enough. But, the concern was with the budget, how much it was going to cost us, yada, yada, yada. But taking a look at, it's a clear indication on page 25 of what the employees are required to do on a normal day, a non-event day. And so we need help. You have to do something about it. So thank you for that, Britt. Counselor Johnson?
So as we move forward, do we need to motion each of these individual positions, or can we say, all right, I'm looking here 2 plus 10 plus 2, 14 full-time equivalents, and then you all put the pieces together, or how best do we support creating these these positions and filling these hours to support the utility workers, what's the best way to help you all move forward now?
So you're asking for staff, and I think Counselor Johnson's ready to make a motion, but how that motion is worded, we're looking for some assistance in what you're asking for. So one moment. Okay, thank you. Clarification from our city attorney. This was, it was titled a special committee of the whole meeting. So special personnel as a committee of the whole, not as a council meeting. So if we could find out how we want to word a potential motion, even though this is a committee of the whole, we can word that motion and move it on to the city council for adoption. So that would just be a matter of semantics. So for what Councilor Johnson is asking is, how do we formulate what your need is with respect to giving you the authority to have some flexibility in hiring your staff and then parting out their duties and responsibilities as needed for that new Ontario Motors Event Center. Brian?
It would be my recommendation to make a motion that allows us to hire the equivalent of 10 full-time equivalent recreation assistants to work in the building. I would also love the ability to be able to pull some of our skate shack attendants in right now because they're already on the staff payroll into the building, still keeping them under the 20 hours per week that is required, but giving us the ability to tap that labor that we already have on staff so we can a little bit quicker resolve some of our staffing shortages.
And this would, those recreation assistants, as a clarification, the shack attendants would be inclusive of these 10, not in addition to. Are they in addition to?
Well, yeah, they're separate individual. I'm not understanding
No, I'm
the
sorry,
question.
so you're looking for 10 full-time recreation assistants you want to pull?
The equivalent of 10 full-time employees.
So that would
So
include-
I'm not saying a number of bodies, but
Okay, all right, I understand. Okay, very good, thank you. Councilor Freely.
And as I understand, you'd need to increase a pool of employees from which to
to
choose.
pull from to fill our needs.
And yeah, so those are already on staff, but you could still pull from that pool.
Correct.
And it's not in addition to the 10 that we're looking at. Okay, thank you.
Great, that's what I was trying to make, thank you for the clarification. So Councilor Johnson, do you have kind of an idea what our Park and Rec Director is asking for?
So I understand what Brian's asking for. What I'm asking is, there's full 4 bullets of a needed labor. Are we prioritizing today? Obviously, the rec assistance is number 1 on that list to get up to 10 full-time equivalents at a pool of bodies that could, if they all worked, they would all be, with all their hours would equal 10 full-time or 400 hours. That's what you're looking for, is 400 hours of availability of bodies.
Yep, based on the building's schedule.
Based on the building schedule. And then the lead rec attendants, the event coordinator, and the receptionist administrative assistant, is that something you would like to see us act on today, or is that something we can spend a little bit more time on?
Yes, can we take each of them individually?
Okay,
Let's talk about
that's what
them.
I was looking for.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
So I will make a motion to authorize the staff to hire up to 10 full-time equivalents to staff the building as needed, and to move that to tonight's council meeting for full approval.
I'll support for discussion.
Total full-time equivalents, if it's 100 people, if it's 10 people, whatever you deem necessary to fill so that our building can operate above what we expect it to operate.
So we're clear on that motion? You have the motion? Is there support for Councilor Johnson's motion?
Support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for further discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
guess the question I have now is, like, there is gonna be some overlap in duties, it seems, when I read these things. Like, I guess, do I have consensus with utility workers that this is the need and that the overlap of, I guess, like, there's so much that needs to be done. And I'm assuming that, like, rec assistants, are they just exclusively custodians at time, or do utility workers also have custodial duties? You see what I'm getting at? It's like, I need to know if it's exclusive to the revenue we're raising in the concession stands, or is it the overall operation and maintenance of the building? That's what I picture.
It is to the overall operation and maintenance or housekeeping of the building.
And so there is consensus from the utility side of that this is in fact what we need, because they're gonna be collaborating with that staff to get that job done.
Our utility workers physically do not have enough time during the day to meet the checklist of expectations of everything that must be cleaned.
Right.
So there are not enough hours in the day for the full-time employees on top of snow removal, on top of ice maintenance that has to get done. So having the ability that, like after the Niski tournament, to pull in, or during the Niski tournament, to pull in staff to assist them in keeping the building clean. During a high school game, to pull in staff to help all of us keep that building clean
And that's
is
what I'm saying.
essential.
So this recommendation and this motion reinforces the need throughout the building in collaboration with utility and rec assistants.
And I'll let any of them speak to it, or Amanda speak to it also.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm not going to speak on behalf of the utility workers. There are some clear lines in terms of what work is done under the job description of utility, of utility versus what's done by rec assistants. Is clear overlap. And so I guess if you're looking for, is this an answer for what is needed now? Yes. Does this solve all of the, is the utility fully staffed for eternity, or is that a discussion that maybe needs to happen in the future? Maybe, but that's not what we're here to discuss or support. There is a need for part-time staff right now to help support the work that the utility workers do. They have too much to do. And so just to back up what Brian was saying, my understanding is that, yes, this is a needed improvement right now, so.
Right, it
Does that-
complements and reinforces what's needed from the utility end as well.
Yeah, it allows them to get to the core of the job that they have that is outside of this, and then be supported in that overlap, I guess is what I would say.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Amanda. So there's a motion on the floor. It's been moved and supported. Would you read back the motion, please? So we're all clear?
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlieb, to approve hiring additional staff of up to the equivalent of 10 FTE recreation assistants.
And it's moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's a gentleman that wanted to address.
I'm another utility worker, and I just want to say, maybe come spend some time with us. Come shadow us. I'll just go over my last Wednesday morning. I worked day shift. We had 3 inches of snow. It took me and another worker 6.5 hours just to move snow with a little bobcat and a truck that the plow fell off of. So we didn't even have time to touch the 14 locker rooms that we have, including the hallway, where you have to hit every day. That's where the majority of people see, hockey-wise, is that hallway. Every day we try to get that hallway done. An hour later after doing it, it looks like we never touched it. So, and that's not including the walking track, where we have people there at 6:05 in the morning waiting to use it. And if there's a spill of popcorn that we can't get to because we're out moving snow to let people into the building, and they see that kind of reflects on us, like we're not doing our job. So just spend some time with us. If you come to an afternoon shift and see how much ice we have to do for just practices. Or come to a day shift where we have 3 inches of snow, and come sit in the tool cat with us and have your back hurt for a little while. So, I mean, just you know, we're trying to do our best. And we're 4 months into a building that, it's not like it's the miners. This is a whole nother animal. I mean, this is, the amount of steps you put in this building is unreal just to go from the back to the front and back again. So, I mean, I do agree if we had like a text number, because we can't be everywhere at once. There's only 2 of us, you know, for mostly days and afternoons. So I just want to let you know kind of how we are taking care of things. So,
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important for us to hear from your employees. I mean, I've heard from a lot of you guys, a lot of the employees. I've heard from supervisors, from staff, from person. That's why we call this meeting, because the concerns that were generated with respect to what your duties and responsibilities are how overwhelming the work is being done by the amount of personnel we have here. That's the goal and objective here today, is to get you that help that you need. So thank you for that. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? First, Councilor Freelieb, then Councilor Bearable, then Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freelieb.
So essentially, Casey, you're telling us that these employees we're recommending are going to be assisting you in getting those things, the gaps covered that are not being covered.
you know, I think it will. It just, we got to know what spots they're helping us in. If it's, you know, checking the garbages and checking the bathrooms, or even hopping on the floor scrubber and cleaning the floors up front while we're, you know, taking care of ice. I mean, and that's kind of where we need to know, which is okay, you know, but we just need to know where we can mix together and help.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So that's coordination can happen as long as we have that pool to draw from. That's good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And the duties and responsibilities as you move forward will be directed, delegated by the staff. You'll figure all that out from staff level. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, hi, this is going to Sherry again. Sherry, what did you project for 2022, the shortfall on this ITMEC building?
With this additional staff that they're
No,
asking?
without it. You figured there was going to be a shortfall with the current staffing.
Correct.
What was it? How much was that? It was 600?
Was it
No,
615,000?
hang on. I'll get it for you. 9.
9 something, wasn't it?
No, that was. Can I come back to you, Charlie? I'll get it to you.
Okay, well, hold that thought. She'll get you that answer.
Well,
Councilor Johnson.
Here's what I'm looking at, Sherry. If we add these 10 full-time equivalents at $25 an hour, which wouldn't be if you got part-time mix in there, you're looking at $520,000 extra for the year. So you've already incorporated some of that in a shortfall.
Right, my shortfall was a little over 400,000.
Okay, so this is 120,000 more at $25 an hour, which is probably same as you're forecasting.
17.
Yeah, I figured it at 25, but eventually some of those will probably go to full-time eventually too. So I upped the amount. So it's about the same amount of dollar bills. I'm not worried about the dollar bills because we already projected that shortfall.
Right, and to keep in mind is that we have $1.9 million in expenses that we projected for 2020. If we add this amount on, it's going to push it a little over 2 million. I conservatively only budgeted revenue at 1.5 million. If we go by what they've made in 4 months, at 1.2 million, that's way conservative. September, October, November, December.
Count September, we didn't open till the end of the month.
Okay, I'll see you there.
Any renters in
So
September?
it's really conservative. And I'm still, if you take what the city budgeted for recreation in 2021, we set aside $960,000. Give or take, we're still going to come out about $100,000, $104,000 in the good. Being conservative. I think we're going to do better than that.
Thanks, Sherry. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Casey, for that point. So will these these rec assistants be able to be on call? I mean, like, can we call them in the morning, go, hey, can you come to work today? To alleviate that, because if we have a major snowstorm and nobody's there because you're out plowing, we still haven't solved the problem of keeping the building up. So how, is that something you all can work on internally to make that, fix that?
That would be something that we would need to work on internally. I wouldn't refer to them as on-call, but if, like, right now, we know what our schedule is for next week, but due to the outstanding job that the Lundins are doing of marketing the building and booking the building, every once in a while, like last week, we had hey, here in 3 days, we've booked the event for in 3 days, so that then we had to call our part-time staff and ask if they were available.
Okay.
During a snowstorm, we could do the exact same thing of call and say, hey, are you available to come in to assist with housekeeping duties?
And when I say on-call, that, I understand that we pay people to sit at home and wait to get called, and that's not what I meant. I meant, in my term, what you just said is that we know, this weekend, there could be a major snowstorm coming. Being able to call people, go down the list, starting with the full-time people, however that works. I just want to make sure there's a plan for that. To alleviate what Casey just said about last Wednesday and having to spend 6.5 hours plowing, that, how do we rectify that? And the other part I want to bring up is that you already do have weekly meetings with the staff, do you not? Or
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay, so there's already a lot of collaboration, so those job duties and things will be can be redefined every other day if needed.
And also want to point out that for snow removal, when I foresee a snow event coming, I'm reaching out to the staff, seeing if anybody's able to come in early to help with the snow removal so that the sidewalks have a pathway from the parking lot to the front door for that 605 walker, that they're not traipsing through the snow. Our staff has done a great job of filling every single vacancy that we have or need that we have. Our utility workers are awesome. They've worked together as a team. And it would help them that when we have these big snowstorms, just like Public Works comes in to start clearing the streets, if we have the ability to utilize our staff like we have been, of calling them in to come in early on overtime or anything to open up the sidewalks. But then due to the amount of sidewalks that we have, 48,000 square feet of plaza and sidewalks, that's a big driveway that has to be cleared. We've essentially doubled the amount of parking lot spaces that we had compared to the miners. That is a lot of plowing. Our guys have their hands full with plowing. The park guys come down and assist with the plowing of the parking lots. Public Works does an incredible job of plowing our streets and assisting us with the plowing. But that housekeeping thing on those days, having the ability to call in Buddy or Jim or somebody that is a part-timer to come in and assist them with that locker room hallway, the locker rooms that have the melted snow on them that have left white stains that people automatically think, oh, well, they never clean. Oh, we just didn't get a chance to mop because we were taking care of snow. That would be huge and very beneficial to the building and the reputation.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I know the mayor has already scolded
Okay.
us to stay on subject, but I think it would be a disservice to the utility workers to not say, as Casey pointed out, 3 inches of snow is not a catastrophic snowstorm. It's kind of a regular event. And it shouldn't take 6.5 hours to plow. There is a need for equipment that can handle what Brian is describing. So this is not only a staffing issue, which I know is the purpose of this meeting, but there is a need to address that piece for this building as well. So just to throw that out there, because that's, that was what Casey was speaking to in part.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. So, for me, it's about, our job is to provide you the staffing that you need. Obviously, your job is to do whatever you need to do to effectively manage that facility. So for me to say that, well, maybe you need to put this person over here, or for a counselor to say you need to put this person, I think the motion on the floor is to give you the authority to hire 10 additional full-time equivalents and assign them as you need and associated with that, whether it's a call-out thing, whether it's a call list, however you work that out, like you do already with the other 10. I think it's important for you to have that flexibility moving forward, and our job is to give you that flexibility, to give you that information. And I know that you have, as Amanda pointed out, some requests for some additional equipment in order to accomplish and be more effective and efficient for your staff, so they don't have to be working on that for a extended period of time with equipment. That they could have better equipment moving forward. So we'll work on that. But the motion on the floor is for the staffing of the 10 full-time equivalents. Is there any further discussion?
Just real quickly,
Counselor Freely.
it's not an additional 10, total full-time.
Pardon?
You had mentioned an additional, and it's not an additional. It's a full-time, 10 full-time.
Right, 10 full-time. We already have 10. Recreation assistants. We're asking for 10 more.
For a total of 10 FTEs, not an additional 10 FTEs.
Okay, so do we have 10 full-time EFTs now?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So read back the motion one more time. Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Freely.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Freely, to approve hiring staff of up to the equivalent of 10 full-time employee recreation assistants.
Okay, with the additional taken out, thank you for that clarification, Counselor Freely. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Move to item number 2 on the agenda, which is the job description for the Park and Rec personnel. We can discuss that, and then we'll take a quick break.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes,
Point of order.
yeah, go ahead.
Will we be addressing these other 3 positions at a future committee meeting, or should we be deciding those today? The lead recreation assistants, 2 full-time equivalents, event coordinator, up to 1.5 full-time equivalents, and a receptionist, half-time full-time equivalent.
Well, we do have one motion on the floor, which we voted upon.
Yes, and there's 3 other points.
There are 3 other points, but is there a recommendation on those points?
That's what I'm asking, Mayor.
And that's what I asked earlier.
I asked to take them separately.
Okay, so which one do you want to work on next?
Move to the receptionist administrative assistant, which is item number 2, actually.
Right, that's what I want to do.
It is in the budget at the
Yep.
halftime.
Yep.
We did update it to be more modernized to what we are actually needing, as Jim Hunt had alluded to when he gave his presentation and in his letter. We do need somebody to sit there and answer the phone. Weekends are a busy time when people are in the building. They oftentimes come in when they're in the building for a hockey game or for an event. They come in there and ask, can I have a tour? Or can I get some information about renting the building for my baby shower, my wedding, my grandmother's 50th birthday or 80th birthday party, whatever it might be. So it would be advantageous to have somebody sitting at that desk in there and having posted, scheduled hours that we can have somebody sitting at that desk and have a spot where people know to go and get information.
So for clarification, are you saying the position that's currently held by Mary Rozier?
We'd like to split it.
You want to split that?
Currently, it's administrative assistant at Public Works, Park and Rec. We want to split the position to, at this moment, just post it internally as an administrative assistant at Iron Trail Motors Event Center, but technically under the Park and Recreation heading. And the new job description is in your packet.
Okay, and so for the clarification for me, so the other one that they wouldn't be working, this position wouldn't be a Public Works.
Not at all.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Counselor Johnson?
I would move approval of the updated job description.
Okay, there was a motion by Counselor Johnson to move forward with the approval, we're reviewing the approval of the job description for the administrative assistant as proposed. Is there support for that?
Full support for discussion, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Baraboo for discussion, further discussion. First, Counselor Paulson, and then to Counselor Baraboo.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so Counselor Johnson, what I'm seeing in our packet is the last date it was updated was 9/26/18. Are we not going to have a discussion on the update of the position before we vote on the position?
We have to move it before we can discuss it, so that's why I moved it, so it could be discussed.
Well, we could have discussed it before, but now there's a motion on the floor with a second, so we're discussing now.
But according to this job description in our packet, this job description will not be the current job description that is going to
Job
be,
description immediately follows that.
page what, okay.
Page 58. You have both the old job description and the proposed new job description, the updated job description.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had printed off the last week's one and not this one. So can maybe just explain, it's going 0.5 FTE under Park and Rec and still 0.5 under Public Works?
Completely taken off the Public Works portion of this. We have not addressed the Public Works portion of this job yet. They're still working on the job description for what Public Works might need with the new Public Works Director. He has not determined what he needs yet in his facility.
Okay, and then in Jim Hunt's, that's what was needed was just a 0.5 here. I thought it was a full-time.
At this moment, like Jim alluded to, this position, at this time, what we need is a half-time position.
May potentially grow as the
Building grows. But at this moment, we don't know what we don't know yet. We know we need somebody there at least half-time at this moment to answer the phone and assist with light secretarial duties.
So that event coordinator, who is going to be the one answering the phones in the office?
Receptionist, the administrative assistant, yes.
The administrative assistant.
Correct.
So how are we going to accomplish all that we want to accomplish by having somebody available to answer questions all the time if it's only 0.5? I think we should talk about this before we, because it looks like we've got an event coordinator need and a receptionist administrative assistant need.
Amanda, maybe you could answer Councilor
You
Paulson's
asked
question.
the same question we have. We have not seen job descriptions for the event coordinator work yet, and we assume that those would be AFSCME positions, whether part-time or full-time. And so.
Sorry, Amanda, I'm having a tough time.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
So we have not seen job descriptions for the event coordinator positions yet. Those are new to this packet. And I have concerns, just in looking over the new proposed job description, that there is interaction between those two. You can see 0.7 is handle event troubleshooting and client resolution with urgency. Now, that may be relevant to both, but what is the interaction? And I think I have the same question as you. If you want somebody there to answer the phone and to do that frontline interaction, and it's at a 0.5 FTE, how does that accomplish that goal? Especially if you're trying to divide that 0.5 FTE between weekday and weekend coverage, which was an explicit ask of the union when this was updated. So, I think our belief is that this should be a full-time position, but also that we need to understand how this is interacting with the new proposed jobs that are before the council as well, on top of this.
And I'm in favor of moving forward with what is needed at the building. I'm just trying to understand that the event coordinator is going to be doing what? And I'm wondering if these you're asking for 0.5, but is that just one person, or is that like we just did with the rec assistants? Okay.
Yes, one person,
Okay,
Counselor, on the.
so could you maybe answer the event coordinator question?
Yes. So if a client wants to book with us, they'll call the phone number and Lundin Productions will book them in. And then it's at that point, they become there's an operational handoff. Tyler will send the information that he has gleaned from that client, and then operations will take over that client to dial in the specifics and execute the event itself. So two very different roles in our mind.
Okay, so that helps me. So they are different, will they overlap, as Amanda is asking, will the rec assistant, or excuse me, the receptionist overlap with the event coordinator in any duties that you could foresee?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, and that's an easy no. As opposed, sometimes there are guest service needs that arise that the administrative assistant will be asked, but they would turn over primarily, exclusively to the operations team, so they can execute needed change the garbage cans or whatever that might be.
To answer that item number 7, like Amanda mentioned, that hallway answer, like the example I gave, there was a craft show a couple weeks ago. The hallway lights weren't on, and nobody said anything until 10:30 in the morning. They had been there all morning, and nobody said a word that the hallway lights were on because there was nobody to tell that the hallway lights didn't turn on. And if they could have told this receptionist, hey, the hallway lights weren't on, so she could have went and found, she could have went and found somebody and said, hey, the hallway lights aren't turning on in the event center.
And I think my only contention is that it's only 0.5, and how are you going to capture whatever is going on at a, ballroom, arena, secondary arena? How is one person at 0.5 going to be able to perform that customer service duty in an efficient and effective manner?
We've had 0.5 for all these years, and it seemed to have worked so far, and I think that's what we kind of alluded to. Jim Hunt mentioned earlier, in quarter 2, we think 0.5 would work, in quarter 3 and 4, we may come back to you and say it's not working, we need more time. We know we need this person to be a full-time position. 0.5 is what Sherry has budgeted, is why we brought this forward. It's what's budgeted right now,
But the other 0.5 is in the Public Works.
Correct. But Public Works needs a secretary as well. That's their budget. That's not this budget.
Right. Right, I understand that, but what I just heard out of both of you, was that you need this piece of hospitality, Brian and Jim, to make the facility go. That there needs to be, even the mayor was saying, there needs to be a front person there to get those questions answered. How is that going to be accomplished with a 0.5 person?
Scott, could you please come up to the podium for a moment so the.
Hello, Council. This position that you're trying to propose as a half-time, this position is still going to oversee everything at the park, correct? For scheduling into the buildings in the park, scheduling the gun club, I guess, whose responsibility is gonna be that? That's what I'm worried about that too.
That's
this position.
reservations are online.
Reservations are online.
We're online,
Yes.
but who oversees that then? Does the secretary oversee all that?
Input data entry event.
I mean, we're forgetting about the park, we're forgetting about
It's
the
the very
gun
first item,
club.
number 1. Input data entry of event reservation requests, including scheduling software.
Is there enough time in a half-time position to maintain all that plus everything else that's going on at the event center?
That's what she does now.
But when she's down at the Public Works, she's also doing it there too. It's overlapping. We all know that. Just like it's overlapping, Public Works is overlapping at the park. So that's why, I mean, I guess I worry about that also, we don't want to forget about the park.
There is nothing more I'd like than a blank checkbook from the city council to
Right,
hire
right.
1 million staff for this building.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm just kind of throwing that out there a little bit about staffing, I mean.
Can I add to that, Scott?
Yes.
I think what we're here dealing with today was there was a really conservative kind of way that staffing was approached when the MEC was open, right? We can only afford this many staff up to this many hours. And I guess what we're asking is, you have this opportunity with a retirement to rework this position, right? And to change the job description and to move an employee into this position that is solely dedicated to this, department. And I think what both Scott and I are saying is we don't want to see the same kind of mistake made that, let's staff this to what is potentially needed. And certainly we see the need for a full-time position. I think the staff who work there see the need, and management has articulated that need, right? They have said, you want somebody to work weekends, you want somebody to be the front-facing person for this building. And that cannot be accomplished with a half-time position. And I think that's our concern, is we don't want to see that go forward that way, so.
Okay, thank you. Well, there is a motion on the floor and a second to accept this job description based upon what's written here with the .5 FTE. So we're still in the discussion phase. Go to Counselor Bearable and then back to Counselor Paulson, then over to Counselor Johnson.
Yeah, I
Counselor
think what
Bearable.
Scott and Amanda don't understand, that halftime position in Public Works is still open. We're going to be hiring for that. Is that correct, Rick?
We have to determine yet what we're going to do
We
on
haven't
there.
determined that yet, but for my book, this one person we're hiring for the ITech, or ITech, I guess ITMEC, or whatever it's called.
The Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Yeah, ITMEC, that's what I call it, is totally separate from the Public Works position. So we're just dealing with the ITMEC right now, and we'll be looking at Public Works in the future here.
And my thought process in this is we're asking for the part-time person right now. I have the expectation that the building is going to continue to grow like it has over the past 3 months. And I'm hoping before the end of the budget year to be coming back to you asking to take this position full-time. I just want to make sure that the building revenue supports taking that position full-time.
Just one other item, contractually, right, posting a part-time position and training somebody into this role, if you then move to a full-time position, you would then have to repost that, and it is open and available to bid on by seniority. And so if you ask for that, and in 6 months you want to repost it, a full-time position may be attractive for transfer, and you may be retraining someone to perform this role at that point. And so, I mean, just on a functional level, putting somebody into that position and having them trained and some continuity within this building, I can't advocate strongly enough that you look at posting this full-time rather than accepting this as a part-time posting. They've done a great job of expressing the need for full-time. Part-time was brought simply because of what it was budgeted for. But you are talking about increasing that budget, and you're talking about increasing staff, and this is an area where there is a need. So, from Local 454's perspective, please consider increasing it to full-time.
Okay, thank you. Well, I see a need for the full-time, I think, moving forward, but the recommendation from staff, after discussing it at length, and I have to put my faith in the staff about what the steps are, understanding what the contractual obligations are. In the event it does, if this passes, it's only half-time, we decide we want to go full-time, we have to follow the contract, understandably so. I'm assuming that's been vetted out administratively before it came to us today. Counselor Paulson, and then over to Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I'm still reviewing.
You want to hold that thought and we'll go to Counselor
Yeah,
Johnson?
that's fine.
Okay, Counselor Johnson.
I have a question on the contract. It's appointed by seniority as if they're qualified, right? Like you have to be able to do the job to be just moved up. You don't automatically get put in because of seniority.
It's senior minimally qualified, so senior qualified.
So I want to be, because the way you presented it was that whoever's the most senior person could bid into it and they're cool, but they have to be qualified to do it.
But
Or the ability to acquire those qualifications within 3 months or 6 months or whatever it says, correct?
So what I'm saying, for example, is you appoint somebody into a part-time position.
I understand what you're saying, but I want to make clear that it's not an automatic. We're following the contract. There are qualifications that person needs to meet to be able to just move in because of seniority.
They have to meet the minimum qualifications listed on the job
Thank you.
description that you're viewing.
Thank you. And also, back to the full-time versus part-time, I appreciate that the staff there, the administration are being conservative because they're there a lot as well. I know that both Brian and Jim are there a lot, and they've both done a better job now that we've got some kind of groove of balancing being at work and not being at work. And we also have support from our contractor from time to time. So I think what we're really looking at doing is doing the minimum to get somebody so there's not a gap in service. There's going to be anyway with the retirement, to get somebody there to see what we need, and then that person can learn what else we need. We can learn that, yes, managing the rec desk actually takes 4 hours a day, or maybe it only takes a half hour a day because everything's automated. We don't know that because we haven't had a person, to my knowledge, other than Brian, who has been trying to manage that as we go through. And I say that sitting on the frog board where they need to submit things for the greenhouse that haven't been put in because we haven't submitted it. Having people book other buildings, and then, it's all available for everybody to see on the public website. And that's been something that hasn't happened regularly since the new rec desk has come up because of other challenges. So I still think that starting at part-time and getting it filled immediately as soon as possible is beneficial. And then by all means, if we need to post a full-time in 6 months, I don't see that being a problem at all. But I'd rather find out what it is we need that full-time person to be, because then you all know what that's gonna be. I'd hate to have one of you full-time people come into a full-time job and sit there for 3 months and go, I hate this, and we're in the same boat anyway. So I'd rather be able to find it, and that's why I moved, as recommended, to move forward, and then we can review it. And if I need to amend it, my motion to be reviewed specifically in 6 months, I will do that. But I think that will happen naturally anyway, based on the communication of the staff, both at the weekly, more by every other day meetings, and then the weekly department head meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson, you got your
I do, Mayor.
questions need? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If you go on page 58, item number 6, responsibilities, ensure all clients are greeted and their unique needs, questions, and concerns are addressed in a highly professional manner. There's other things in there, but then if you go to their work schedule, the next page, it says this position is part-time, 20 to 30 hours per week, and will generally be assigned to a set schedule with required scheduled weekend shifts. On rare occasions, schedule may include day, evening, and weekend hours above and beyond normal working hours. That doesn't make any sense to me at all, just being honest. If we just got done talking about the actual needs of when there's tournaments or events in the ballroom, the convention center side, having this person work 20 to 30 hours per week during a Monday through Friday work week schedule with some weekends, and then possibly on rare occasions above and beyond the normal working hours, does not answer their responsibilities, item number 6, that they're to ensure all clients are greeted and their unique needs, questions, and concerns are addressed in a highly professional manner. Can someone explain to me how a .5 working day shift is going to assist all of those busy activities on the weekend? It doesn't make sense what is in the job description. And that's what I thought we were supposed to be going over before we're just blanket approving this. Can anyone help me here?
Well, I think we are here to review the job description for administrative assistants.
And I'm trying to explain that it doesn't make sense the way that what we've just discussed for the last 2 hours was that it's imperative that we have somebody there and answering the phones and being available. So if a .5 can accomplish all this on a Monday through Friday day shift, great, but I don't know how that's going to happen when most of the events are happening on evenings and weekends.
Yeah, but in order to answer your question about, we wanted to discuss this first. The item on the agenda was to review the job description. We started to review the job description, and there was a motion on the floor to accept the job description, so you have to accept the motion on the floor. There was a second. Now we're in the middle of the discussion. So as we finish our discussion, there'll be a vote whether we approve the .5 based on staff's recommendation or we do not. And then if it doesn't pass, we move to the next issue with respect to the full-time position. But I have a tendency to concur with you with respect to, I think it'd be easier to find a full-time position than it would be to find somebody to take that part-time. But please continue with your thoughts.
I guess I just want that question answered. How are we how are we accomplishing the customer service that we just got done talking about when it says high attention to detail and superior customer service if they're only there Monday through Friday during the day?
Sounds like you're suggesting that we change this more to a full-time position with a set schedule, say, of something like noon to 8 p.m.?
Or just whatever you were just got done telling us, that it's whatever the building dictates, whatever the events are happening would dictate that level.
This work schedule is not set for Monday through Friday. This work schedule, the rare occasions schedule may include day, evening, and weekend hours above and beyond the normal working hours. The set schedule is something that will be set with the person based on the building needs. Because they're an AFSCME, we have to give them a set schedule. Doesn't say it has to be Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30.
But it says on rare occasions,
There may be duties outside of your normal working hours. So your normal schedule may be Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6, but we may need you to come in at 6 a.m. to meet with Minnesota Power on Thursday because they need some special AV equipment set up, so you may have to come in at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's what that intent of that language is.
And my thought process is I don't know how you're going to accomplish the customer service aspect that we all just got done talking about. That is, we need to maintain.
We need you
that.
to be flexible because you may need to come in at 6 a.m. to meet with Minnesota Power when they need the AV set up, that you need to be there. You need to be the one to be there at 6 a.m. because Jim and Brian are going to meet with Lakehead instead. So we need you to be the one to come at 6 a.m.
But I thought that would be the event coordinator and that this person is here to assist the general public, not.
And sometimes it's an all hands on deck. Sometimes it's everybody needs to be
Yeah,
pitching.
it's not making sense because now I feel like there is going to be overlap.
I really wouldn't see this as this position meeting with Minnesota Power or
No,
Lakehead.
I don't see that at
I
all.
would see it more that, hey, we have realized that we have an influx of customers who are buying skating memberships, and we need to adjust the time that they are picking up their membership cards. I mean, right now on the desk, we have probably about 6 individual skating membership cards that individuals are needing to pick up. So it would be stuff like that. I don't see this person meeting one-on-one with clients to discuss building usage unless it is a drop-in client that's saying, hey, can I take a look at the building?
And that's the intent, the rare occasion.
Right.
The rare occasion that you need to meet with somebody outside of your normal working hours.
That would
was
be the
intent.
event coordinator person that would handle what you're just describing.
Yes.
Okay,
Could you hold that thought? Could you answer, do you have an answer for Counselor Paulson's question?
That's exactly, this, it's my understanding this part-time administrative receptionist position is not going to be 24/7. It's part-time. It's not going to be the regular 7:30 to 3:30 position. It's going to have to be scheduled per the, what dictates that comes in. So exactly what just went on here is what I was going to say, so.
Well, you pointed out item 6, all the clients that they can, while that administration is working, will address all those clients during the work hours, but not beyond not having the work hours. So who's addressing those? Would that come from, would Jim and Brian take up the brunt of that in the event that we don't have the administrative assistants available? So I think that was your question, right?
I think that's part of it. Part of it just, I'm still trying to understand how an event coordinator, I understand what you're saying, there's going to be no overlap, but if we don't have this person here all the time, there probably will be.
And if I can, that's my confusion, right? And particularly with what you just said, Sherry, my understanding is that admin assistants are those who have the set hours. They are there during regular business hours because they are frontline staff to answer basic questions and to do data entry and those key tasks. So you have admin assistants in City Hall, you have admin assistants at these various departments, and that's their role. The event coordinators are the ones who have more flexible schedules potentially to deal with events and the things that come with that. But that's where I'm confused as why would this be posted as a part-time or varied schedule position when what you need there is consistency for the public to know that from these hours, they can come in and reach somebody, and physically, whether that's by phone or in person, they can come in and say, hey, I need to talk about this.
That's why it says generally assigned to a set schedule
Yeah.
with a required scheduled weekend shift.
Right, but that conflicted with what Sherry just said, and then also gets to your questions, right, and the concern there, so.
Yeah, so let's go to Counselor Beyondich. And then before we do it, so the question for me is that if there's a meter and a greeter and they're doing data entry, I mean, does it have that administrative assistant have to be up in the office? Can they do their work, in a lobby area environment, and they get a little office space there with a cubicle, and then people come in, they can answer the questions, lead the clients, and they can do all those things together? That's a hard thing to do, right? So I think that's the purpose. So the question is half-time or full-time, how are we gonna work that out? And I'm in agreement with Councilor Paulson. How is a halftime position gonna be as effective as we want it to be? But again, the staff has made their recommendation based on their investigation, so, unless we find something else different, or there's another motion on the floor, we're gonna have to move forward with that particular vote. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I think you kind of took the words out of my mouth when you said that. But my question is, this position did halftime also at Public Works, correct? Why are we pulling it apart, or what is the purpose of, if not going to full-time, what was the reason for separating it?
They have very different needs. Public Works.
But our previous person was able to fulfill those needs?
No, they have very different needs at Public Works.
But the job was done.
The job that they want to have done at Public Works is very different than what's being done right now.
Okay.
And I think it's difficult for an employee to work halftime at the Iron Trail Mortars Event Center and then pack up and we'll go over to Public Works or vice versa.
Correct.
You start at Public Works, you do your work there, you get done there, and then you pack it up and you go over to the Iron Trail Mortars Event Center and start another portion of your day. So I understand the need to separate the two. So, Councilor Bearable.
There's a simple solution to start out with this halftime position. If that person cannot be at the desk to greet people and do stuff, you have a sign made up that I'm here such and such an hours. If I'm not reachable, you gotta have a modern phone system where you can contact and put it on there to dial up either Jim or Brian or somebody else that's designated to pick up the slack. We do that in private business all the time. I mean, that's crazy. You probably did that in your old job, Jim. So I mean, there's a solution to this without going until we find out if we really need that person full-time. That's my philosophy on it. I don't have an objection to, once we find out if we need that person there full-time. But the hour schedule can be flexible with our staffing, and the person we hire just needs to know that. Simple as that. Weekends might be different if they have to work a weekend when there's a hockey tournament or something. I don't anticipate that, because the event coordinators will be there, correct, Jim? So that's my philosophy on this. I'm not going to vote for going with a full-time at this point with that position. Half-time to start with, and we'll look at it down the road here.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is, from staff, we're reviewing this job description, which we are reviewing it, but now there is a motion on the floor and a second to adopt this job description and to bring it forward to the city council tonight for a vote. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? I just have one quick thing. I think it's gonna be difficult to find a half-time person with flexible hours to do that, but that's the job of staff in which to make that taken care of. So Sherry, did you have anything else before we vote? You think it's been moved and supported? Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a current city employee? Will this be posted internally and externally, externally only? And is there a current city employee that is in mind already for this position?
Brian?
Per the contract, it would need to be posted internally first for existing staff to have the opportunity to bid on it. If nobody posts or expressed interest in it, then it would go externally. We don't have anybody in mind that we want to put into this position, but I can tell you that there are 4 part-time recreation assistants that I think could do the job. 2 of them I don't think would apply for it at all because this is already a second job for them and I can't see them wanting the job. So that narrows it down by 50% of who we have on staff that could do an outstanding job for it. But yeah, there could be somebody currently that is in a part-time position that would be interested in moving over.
They need to meet that 67 shift qualification or not?
Not per the contract, no. Once they are hired in a permanent part-time position, so that could be any of our rec assistants, that could be any of the part-timers at the library that are permanent part-time positions, they would have the ability to bid on this position if they so
Without having worked
chose.
those 67 consecutive shifts?
I'm
Is that considered internal? Can someone?
confused on the 67 shifts, so I'm going to turn
seems
that
to
over
have
to
been the
somebody with more
threshold
knowledge.
From the last time, so I'd like some clarification on that.
There's been some misunderstanding on this 67 shifts previous to this because underneath our last contract, we wrote language in there from, let's go back 2 years. If you didn't have 67 shifts in, you were not eligible to bid on a job. So we changed that underneath the last contract that as long as as long as no full-time or eligible people, let's say everybody that has 67 shifts in, none of them bid the job. And somebody that comes in that doesn't have their 67 shifts in, they're able to bid the job. They can get awarded the job through seniority and minimum qualifications as long as nobody else bids it.
And that's classified as internal.
Yes, it has to be internally posted for 7 days. And then once nobody posts into that, then you can go externally to the street.
So the contract language changed with that,
With our last contract.
the last contract not being so steep on that 67.
Yeah, what ended up happening is we would have skilled labor in there per se, and a job posting came up as an equipment operator. Well, this skilled labor was an excellent equipment operator. He or she was not eligible to bid it, and it just didn't make sense to us. So what they would do then was they would have to be stuck in skilled labor, so then that posting would go to the street. So what we did was we took care of these people that pre-67 shifts that qualified, that let them bid the job. So, you know what I'm saying? So that way we could keep
And
our
that-
people in there
That
and
makes
go.
sense to me. So
Yep.
it still is considered an internal posting.
Yes.
Even though those employees may not have completed 67 shifts.
Right, they're still probationary employees.
Very
As
good.
long as no non-probationary employees bid it, they are eligible to bid it.
Perfect. Thank you. That helps clarify a lot. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Okay, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in the gearbox and then we're going to vote. For me personally, I'm not speaking on behalf of the elected body, but for me, you know, you're looking at these, we approved for a vote to the council, the 10 FTEs, right? So I'm comfortable working toward that. I'm comfortable with voting on what the recommendation of staff is. I am supportive of a full-time position here if it's deemed appropriate and following the necessary contractual guidelines with respect to that. But that being said, you know, this isn't the end of our discussion about staffing at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, because we have our utility workers there, our plant managers, and all the job descriptions that work there. they're still overwhelmed in the work that they do. And so this recreation assistant can help alleviate some of that work, but that doesn't negate the need to maybe hire a couple more utility workers as well over for the Untitled Memorial Event Center, and that's for another discussion, but I just want that out there. So thank you. So, read the motion one more time, Pam, make sure that's accurate.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Bearable to approve the updated Administrative Assistant Parks and Recreation job description.
Okay, has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Is this exclusive as a .5 position then, or the description could be expanded to a full-time position?
Well, we're accepting the job description moving forward, and the FLSA status is not exempt, ASME .5 FTE.
And my concern again, like I mentioned earlier, Jim, is that you have a .5 request for additional assistance with event coordination. And I still think that there's a full-time position that could potentially be combined for somebody to be there to assist with some of the things that you need gaps filled for what you're doing as well. Although you kind of mentioned that person couldn't or shouldn't be able to do that. I was a little confused about that because in my mind, that would give us a full-time position with the .5 you're looking for, .5 here, and there would be some overlap with regard to what needs to be accomplished.
A couple ways I think about this is the administrative assistant has an assignment of tasks that currently a tremendous amount of that falls on Brian and myself currently. We think that a half a person at this point of our evolution can suffice in helping fill those gaps in the administrative aspect. The job description talks about great guest service, superior guest service to every guest. There is not an expectation that the administrative assistant is our greeter and end-all guest service provider. When there's a guest that does come into the office or that they come in contact with, just like all of us, the expectation is to deliver that exceptional guest service, but not to everyone in that building, okay? So then we take the event coordinator positions. We think that there's some more opportunity for sales in the bump and skate aspect, and part of that .5 is really going to be focused on that aspect. And the event coordinator full-time position can be more focused on the events in the event center. We also put in there that we'll take on assigned job duties as we see fit, because we don't know, sometimes there's going to be things that pop up that we just aren't aware of. But it would be nice that we have the liberty to be able to move a person, kind of like a hotshot firefighter, into this one role for a day, an hour, whatever it may be, to fill that gap, so we can provide that service and guest service.
So you would prefer and need a separation of duties between these two positions?
Between the two event coordinators?
Administrative assistant and event coordinator?
Yes, they're two
2.5s
different
would be
roles.
preferable.
Yes, sir. They're two different roles.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Jim. You might want to hang around.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't mean to harp on this, but under what you're asking on your event coordinator, create a full-time and a part-time position to the total of 1.5 FTEs. Could you not take 0.5 of the event coordinator you need and 0.5 of the reception administrative assistant you need and create a 1 FTE with those split duties, with that one person being available to you to meet those needs?
I professionally don't like that idea, because we need an administrative assistant to be able to focus on those administrative needs, payroll, ordering, time cards, that sort of thing. The event coordinator is in a whole different sphere in taking care of guests and execution and planning for events.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So the motion on the floor, I think we've repeated it a few times, so we know what the motion is. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Anybody else? Bueller? Okay, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. I would ask for some additional time from everybody here in the audience, and let's just take 5 minutes, use the restroom, and you'll be done. Then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. See you in 5 minutes. Okay, let's resume the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the event coordinator position, the request for 1.5 FTE. We don't have job descriptions available at this point in time. It's part of the request for personnel committee of the whole. I guess I would look for a recommendation from the elected body, and staff would like to continue to work on the job descriptions if we feel it's appropriate, and come back to the council with some job descriptions for us to review in the form of 1.5 FTE for event coordinator position. That being said, looking for council action. Councilor Johnson.
I will move that we refer that back to staff to have better information within job descriptions.
Okay, moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Bronzelli to direct staff to develop job descriptions for the Arlington Motors Event Center coordinator position. The proposal right now is 1.5 FTE, and come back to the City Council for review. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay. Okay, where are we at now here? We're gonna back up to the top of the page.
And then the final piece is the team leader, the lead recreation assistants.
The lead recreation assistants,
We
okay,
do have
thank
one
you.
vacancy right now, and we've been out for applications externally for 2 weeks. We have 2 applications.
Okay,
So we feel that maybe it would be a little more marketable if it was a full-time position. Just suggesting that.
okay, so if it's a full-time position, it falls under the ASPE contract, obviously, right?
It always does.
Right,
Even if it was
yeah,
part-time,
yeah,
it
just
does
for
follow.
clarification
Yep,
purposes.
it does fall under part-time. If it becomes full-time, then what happens is it would get, instead of getting prorated holidays, it would get full holidays. Excuse me, instead of getting prorated vacation, it would get full vacation, and then it would also have full-time benefits rather than prorated benefits. So while our 2 lead recreation assistants don't take the benefits right now, they might take them when they're full-time.
So if it's a full-time position, that's a clarification, the salary changes?
The salary is the same. What happens is they probably would take the benefits. If they take the benefits, it would be $18.32 a month if it's full family, or $704 if it's single.
So what would be for the full-time position as opposed to the lead recreation assistant is moving it to full-time would entail the same job description?
Same job description, just an increase in hours. And
Increase in hours, which results in ASME position, full-time, correct?
It is an ASME position, still,
Full-time.
right now it is an ASME position. It's a
Right.
part-time permanent ASME position. It would
Very
go to
good.
full-time permanent ASME classification. So it would, instead of getting prorated holiday, it would get full-time holiday benefits. Instead of prorated vacation, it would get full-time vacation benefits. And then it would also then have full-time benefits, health, medical, dental. Right, instead of prorated, it would have full-time. So I'm assuming they would elect to take the benefits, and then we would be responsible for the employer portion of those costs, which if they took family would be $18.32 per month. If they took single, it would be $704.
Okay, and so it would be,
Additional $50,000 more a year.
Thank you, Sherry.
okay, thank you, that was my question. Okay, so the request by staff is to move this from lead recreation
This is
assistant,
from part-time to full-time, and as Amanda mentioned earlier, we'd have to post them both internally again to full-time positions.
very good, thank you.
So the 2 that are the 1 person that's currently is a part-time lead recreation assistant would have to reapply for his job.
So it's an additional $50,000 over and above what the current lead recreation assistant is that correct?
It's going to be for 2 lead recs. To move them up to full-time, it's going to be an additional $50,000. That was not budgeted, but I feel very confident with the amount of revenue coming in that this will cover it.
So the request is for 1 full-time or 2? So the request is for 2 full-time recreational assistants, move from, right?
To to move the 2 part-time lead recreation assistants to full-time.
Thank you, Britt. Okay, looking for council input and action. First of all, Councilor Paulson, and then we'll go around the room.
Thank you, Mary. Sherry, is that 50,000 per employee or 50,000 for both?
It's going to be 50,000 for both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
I will move that we make those positions full-time and post accordingly.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the upgrade to 2 full-time lead recreation assistants with the proper posting as required. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor, either one, we'll say Councilor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. We done there? So now we can go at item 3. Okay, well, this involves personnel, I guess. Discuss time clock swipe key style for digital collection of employee hours. What is our current method of accumulating that, and where are we at? If you could answer that, maybe Brian or Jim or Sherry. Do we have, how are we doing it now?
Right now, we're doing it the way that we always have done. I don't know how this or where this has come from on the agenda, so I will have to defer. I believe myself and staff are fine with the way that we've been doing it, that they write their time down on a time slip that gets turned in. We transfer that to the paperwork that is turned into City Hall. If there's any question about whether a person has cheated on their time or fudged their time or made a mistake, we get back with that individual. We also have cameras throughout the building and these swipe cards so that we're able to verify any questions. If somebody were to accuse somebody else, not saying that anybody has, because to my knowledge, nobody has made an accusation that anybody has been fudging their time. I'm just saying that there are measures in place to account for that if an accusation were to be made of that. So I'm fine with the situation or the process that we currently have.
Okay, thank you. I believe this item was asked to be put on the agenda by Councilor Paulson, so I'll refer to Councilor Paulson first, and then we'll go with the rest of the councilors. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I asked to have this put in after I was doing some digging on other entities and how they handle time cards, and most of that is key swipe. Then I had kind of asked some questions as to who it was that was actually collecting those cards, and it was our administrative assistant. And now we, again, still have a 0.5 FTE. I don't know who's collecting those cards right now, but up until very recently, it was that was part of the job description of that position of administrative assistant. I think it's archaic to have employees handwrite time cards when we have a state-of-the-art computer system and the new building. And I don't know if we have any digital swipe in anywhere else, but it would be my intention to make a motion to convert the employees over at least over at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. I don't know if they have a actual, what does their key card look like right now? Like a lanyard? Yep. So that they would actually just swipe, there would be a digital accounting of their hours, and it's not taking time out of, it's just archaic to handwrite time sheets. If you swipe in, swipe out, swipe out for your break or your lunch. That's with every major company nowadays. It's with the hospital systems, you key in, key out when you get there. It provides a more seamless and a more flawless transition in terms of transmitting the records digitally to payroll. So that's something I intend to make a motion on. It has nothing to do with employees fudging or not fudging, or being there or not being there. It's just handwriting anything right now is pretty archaic, and I think we need to move into the 21st century there.
If I may answer this, Mayor.
Yes, please.
I'm already 3 steps ahead, and since I think if I can respond, I already have the computers purchased, I'm already working on a system that will do that already. Knowing that Mary was retiring, we knew that the archaic system was archaic and would be going away. And so we were already working on a system similar to that, so we're already ahead of you. Amanda wants to jump in also, where employees would be entering their variances and doing, we already have a plan to work this out.
So will this be a actual key? You take your lanyard and you log in, and it's
a touch screen, so they touch in, they enter time.
So why do they have a lanyard then?
That's the door locks, they have to lock every time.
But isn't it integrated? I thought when we had, was it Tierney?
Tierney, yep.
When Tierney was here, we had discussed all of that.
Yep.
So I'm not quite understanding of why they would have to log in versus swipe in.
We didn't buy they don't have a time clock.
Yeah, and that's what I'm suggesting, we have a time clock.
Amanda wants to speak to.
I guess before we, Amanda, if you just one moment, please. Okay, I can just give a little history. I don't like that. Well, okay, when I worked at the airport, we started this key card access system that they have now at the Antrim Moise Event Center. Talk about time sheets and those kind of time cards and they went to they're going to do a touch tone thing, but it was easy for. I'm not saying this would happen here. I don't know at all, but it's easy for somebody else to punch in for you a number, whatever the case may be. If you had a key swipe card. Okay, this is what the argument was. If you had a key swipe card, then that would negate that from happening.
That's what I'm asking for, a key swipe.
But it didn't. It didn't, but, so, I mean.
So it doesn't eliminate?
No, but whatever method.
It's a digital collection of their hours, which if they're handwriting, that's archaic. To have someone go in there tabulating handwritten hours.
Yeah, whether it's a swipe or whether it's a touchpad. I mean, if you're looking for a digital form, I think staff is working on that as you requested. I'm sorry, Amanda, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you have something you can add on to Councilor Paulson's issue.
Yeah, I don't have any, I understand the argument that it's archaic. My concern is, in part the cost, but not just the cost of a physical system, but the cost in time. In ensuring that whatever digital system you're utilizing accurately reflects the contract. My experience in entities that convert to these sorts of digital collection is that there are payroll errors that are associated with that, and that has a huge impact on the those who are doing payroll, because it requires a lot of manual work on the back end if the system isn't done appropriately, and whether that's calculating holiday time or overtime or comp or anything that comes into that as is negotiated in our contract. And so if you're working with a company's software, that can have serious costs if you're actually trying to get that integrated in with this. And so, from a contract perspective, our interest is ensuring that this doesn't have a negative impact or a burden on both the employees here in City Hall who handle that, the back end of that payroll, but then on the employees who are ultimately responsible for using this clock.
Sure, and I can appreciate where you're going with that. I hope you can appreciate where I'm going with that, is as we now are employing 20 to 50 people at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, to handwrite time cards and turn them in is completely unreasonable and unmanageably unreasonable. So when we had interviewed Tierney, it was in fact on the table that we would be going to a time clock. Yeah, I can go back, I guess, because I'm pretty sure we had talked about swiping in and out of the buildings, being able to have employees log in and out when they were there, so you would know where Park and Rec employees were when we were talking about building
Would that be
security.
with Tierney or Permar?
I don't know if it was Permar, it wasn't,
But it is something I am working with a company called the Lad Tech Company that's the fire department and police department use. It's the same system that they use for their timekeeping for the exact same reason, that they keep track of all their 65 pay codes and so that they don't have to use physical handwriting of information.
I mean, I also think for the city's protection, when you have all these new employees over at the building, having them key in and key out is important for us to understand who's in the building, as well as digitally be able to collect when they're there and when they're not there. And if you only have someone at point 5 doing administrative work, it only makes sense to move into the 21st century in terms of their time clock in hours. You've got people in and out of that building all day long with part-time employees, with, you know, not overtime, but at different events, and there should be different kiosks so that they can swipe their key and log in that they are there and clock out when they take their break, clock back in, or however that system works. So, I mean, I don't know if I need to make a motion or if anyone else wants to discuss, but I'd like to make a motion that that city staff, I guess, direct city staff to continue with the work that you're doing right now with the digital time clock, key swipe style for logging of employee hours, specifically at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay, that's your motion.
Yes.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. Further discussion? Mike, quickly. I mean, if you do it if you do it at the Iron Trail Memorial Event Center, you should do it to everybody,
Well, that's fine, too.
I
I
mean,
would expand
everybody,
it to that. I
right?
would
And
expand
so
it to
staff
that.
is already working on a system to be presented to us. And so I think your motion is to
Sure,
continue to direct
I'll
staff.
amend it, Mayor, for that, for all city-wide.
Okay, so you're directing staff to do the research with respect to electronic time card keeping,
Correct.
digital time card keeping, and you're continuing to work on that already, Britt? So to formalize that motion, is there support? Oh, supported already by Counselor Beyondich. Further discussion, did you want to continue with the discussion, Counselor Paulson, and then move to Counselor Beyondich and then Counselor Johnson?
I don't have anything further, thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Counselor Beyondich.
Britt, did you say that the other departments already use that?
Use the software. I have to get the price for the card swipe.
But do they use the same type of timekeeping?
I use the software.
So it's nothing new?
The
I mean,
swipe, the time card, yes. The time clock,
that's what I'm asking, do they use that?
no. This is going to be, citywide is going to be a contract negotiation discussion, and it's going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson?
Britt, I'm curious, does this have a app option, this particular software, where, because I know we have, truck drivers that are not going back to the garage to have lunch or that kind of stuff. I guess I'd want to know if it's going to, how that's going to affect our folks that are plowing and hauling and that kind of stuff, for whatever that looks like.
Great question. I will find out.
Yes, because there are systems that you just use your phone or a station. I mean, it's got multiple options for clocking in and out depending on where you are. So I guess I would like that looked at specifically to help support all the staff.
If employees are going to be required to use their own device, then that's a different conversation from the union's perspective.
We don't even know that yet.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there because I know that rumor is already out there, especially amongst MEC staff. We were just talking about that. And if an employee is utilizing their personal phone for city business, that becomes problematic both on a legal level and then on a, the level of requiring employees to have a device to be able to utilize that sort of thing, so.
So I would just say that that's why I asked that question.
So, it's been moved and supported, direct staff to come back with a recommended system moving forward. Excuse me, boy, I apologize. Okay, any further discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda.
Yes, with our update on fitness equipment, had a discussion yesterday with the provider of the fitness equipment. We are hoping, fingers crossed, for a install date sometime in March with a potential grand opening of the fitness center sometime in April. Please keep in mind, these are not hard dates. We still have manufacturing delays. We still have shipping delays. This is just what we are being told at this point. In discussions with the YMCA yesterday, we are looking at beginning fitness classes at the event center prior to the grand opening of the fitness center itself. So we hope to begin some of those classes in the dance and aerobics room here in the next month or so. We are also looking at joint programming that we could be doing in the ballroom later this spring and into the summer. So we are progressing with the agreement that we have in place of providing a partnership that will benefit the public in general.
Okay, does that satisfy the issue here? Okay, thank you. Move to item 5, safe sports training. That was put on the agenda by Councilor Paulson as well. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think number 5 and number 6 kind of go hand in hand. I'm at the building, not as often, but before I was at the building quite often. And what I was noticing, and Brian, maybe you can speak to this too, is that corridor, the main corridor where all the locker rooms are, and the kids are coming in, whether it be for tournaments or just getting ready to change, whether it's whether they're on the main ice or the secondary ice. There's a lot of things going on with the youth in those locker rooms, and parents are in and out of those locker rooms. I don't know if you've noticed this, but they're in and out to try to maybe cut down on some of the hockey stick, or the puck throwing or different things. There's been food issues in some of the locker rooms when I've been there. And there's sometimes not staff available. So parents will go, maybe Vaha staff isn't available. But part of that discussion is the respect level of the athletes that are using the facility. I would call it vandalism when they break handles off in the bathrooms off of the sinks, and they're throwing them in the urinals. They took stickers off, or somebody took, I'm not blaming it on the youth sports or just whomever was in the building, took the employees must wash their hands stickers, threw those in the urinals. And then a lot of times they're taking their hockey stick and they're, I guess, scraping the sidewall as they're walking down, and that's really apparent. Maybe that wall needs to be painted black. But my main concern is in having this discussion, who's going into those locker rooms? Are they approved? I know moms are in and out of some of those to help their kids. Again, when we get the YMCA component in here and the fitness component in here, it's my concern is for safety for those students and those young kids and parents coming in and out. Yes, those parents are trying to help, and somebody needs to be there to maintain some sort of semblance with those teams, whether it be our own, Vaha teams or traveling teams coming in. I just want to know how we're going to better facilitate safety and making sure that those entering into locker rooms are safe sport trained, and that there is some sort of semblance of monitoring the student athletes.
And before you start, maybe I can help elude some of the, when I was coaching down the Metro, it was required every single hockey coach with every team, whether it's a coach or assistant coach, has to be in the locker rooms at all times. They don't leave the locker rooms. They're there monitoring the people going in and out of there. That prevents a lot of that from happening. I don't think we require Vaha to have a coach present. I think that's a decision that they make, but that goes a long ways when you have to have somebody held responsible. And in the event that a hockey coach, like we didn't have our hockey coach and something happened there, guess who was responsible for the maintenance and repair? Vaha, or at that particular time was something, it was Minnetonka Hockey Association, whatever it was that we were part of, where they were responsible. And that really cut down on a lot of that. So I'm sorry, Brian wanted to continue, and then we'll go to Councilor Friedlieb. Councilor Friedlieb, go ahead.
Yeah, just anecdotally, like my wife, it was during the Battle of the Bridge Pee Wee tournament or whatever it was, we were walking on the track up there, and the Bloomington Jefferson team was up there running in the opposite direction, which was a little annoying, and then the coach met with them briefly, and then he disappeared, and those kids all made their way down to the bench area and then onto the ice in their street shoes. And I told them, get off the ice. And it was like I was that water bottle. They didn't care who I was and they weren't getting off the ice. So I went and sought one of the parents that was part of the, so I guess, and I talked to my wife as we continued walking that there would be maybe some provided by the Park and Rec Department, some kind of a supervisory oversight checklist that would be handed to every coach as they enter the building, that this is what we expect. And these are our standards for oversight and supervision of your team, or something like that. And that's kind of what we're getting at, so.
And any damage you're responsible for.
Now, our lease with Vaha does say that they are to require, or we require them to provide a locker room, I want to say it's monitor. And also the lease does say that they are responsible for damage that occurs. Now, the problem is, in the restrooms, how do you relate that damage specifically to Vaha? Welcome to a public building. Stuff like that happens.
And I'm not necessarily saying it's Vaha.
Correct.
I mean, I'm just saying that, you've got that long corridor.
Yes.
And one other point, so when there was some activity, we went all the way down to where the staff break room is. And there's like a clear tape over that doorway. And the student was knocking on that doorway, and somebody was in there, I think, but they don't know, there was nobody that came out. Is that where those kids should be going to, if they need assistance, opening up a locker room or opening something up?
And I think this is a good point, that this is where we need to have that ability that if you require assistance to call this number. I know our figure skating coaches do that. They call me. And then whether I'm there or
I think figure skating
not.
keeps that locked.
Yeah, yes, figure skating keeps their
Locked.
area.
I don't know what the
Locked.
other, these were little
Correct.
boys that were, I
So,
don't know what.
but I think that this is a good point of what we have discussed, of having the sign that if you require assistance, please call or text 218, and then we have that person that is carrying that phone or whatever. I think that is something that we should definitely evaluate looking into to help alleviate that. Whether it's on the event center side or the arena side of things, it could be beneficial to both. And then we do have walkie-talkies that staff are able to call or radio back and forth on. The room that you are referring to is the staff break room. I would hope that the staff was not in that room, because they should be in that room for breaks only. And none of them are left here, but they will tell you that there is enough to do in that building, that it's not like the minors where the staff had the reputation of, if they weren't making a sheet of ice, they were in the break room. We're not like that today.
No, and that's not what I was alluding to.
Correct.
It was just a student that was looking to try to
Looking for somebody and couldn't find them.
Right,
Right.
yep, and that corridor is so long.
It is.
We need some, like, every so often, here's who to call, or the directional, whatever. But those are just some observations, along with, I guess, what Counselor Friedlieb is saying, just to make sure that the kids are being monitored.
Yes.
And I'm not sure who's the responsible party to do those types of things.
Baja is responsible for youth hockey. High school is responsible for high school hockey. That is worked into their lease agreements.
And I think these were some other teams that I had observed some of this behavior. So is that something that we could do like as a checklist or that they have to sign? I mean, I don't know how you keep track of that, but I think there's some expectation that, you know, are parents allowed in these locker rooms? Or no, are they?
They should not be, and that's part of our problem right now. And you will notice going into the locker room corridor, there are signs posted on the door that say skaters, of game officials, coaches, only beyond this point. Like most signage, it doesn't apply to me. I'm going to do what I want. What would help is if I hadn't made a mistake, I'll own up to the mistake that I made. From the Chevrolet Arena going into the locker room area, that door is not on the door scheduling system. From the players' benches in the Toyota Arena into the locker room is not on the door scheduling system. So those doors are unlocked at all times. We are currently working on pricing and everything to get those doors added, which would limit the number of people that have access to the locker room area. We're aware of it. We're currently vetting out a way to help minimize the public individuals that get into an area that should not be public.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Counselor Johnson, I just want to reiterate the fact that, you know, it is the responsibility of the hockey association, whoever it is, or the visiting. I think we have to hold to account to make sure that we emphasize the requirement that somebody has to be in that locker room at all times. And something seriously happened in a locker room where a criminal matter was investigated involving, you know, some individual. And so, you know, granted, it wasn't a liability, at least to the part of the city with respect to that. But had there been a coach or somebody in that locker room, that may have prevented that from happening. And so I think it's imperative that we continue to remind Vaha that you can't leave these kids unattended because, you know, they're kids. They're going to play around. They're going to do things. They're going to throw their hockey sticks or throw a puck along the way. They're going to play practical jokes, and we don't want any liability. And so they have a responsibility as a rental of this facility to follow the rules that we've set and the guidelines we've established.
And we have worked out, and we're in the process of vetting out some different ways of doing things, especially during tournaments, to minimize children in locker rooms that shouldn't be in locker rooms.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Johnson.
I think that you've all touched on that this is a different society we live in. When we've been there for events, there have been children, small children, who are associated with hockey but not being supervised for the adults. And you look at them and you say, where's your adult? And they look at you and continue playing on the ledge over the stairs. You know, and I think hiring of the staff that will significantly help with that, because they'll have official shirts. They'll be able to say, you need to get down. And I think we need to make sure as counselors, we're supporting our staff when they do that, because I'm fairly certain, I speak this confidently, that when one of our staff tells one of those kids to get down, they're going to go to mom and dad and complain, and mom and dad is going to come to one of us and say, why is your staff bossing my kid around? At which point we need to say, because that's their job, manage your kid. I see that when I'm there. I've seen it during hockey tournaments. I've been there. I've seen it during walking track. I've seen it during the craft shows. That's one of the things I think I'm going to work on, is that when a parent comes to me and says, this is what's happening, I'm going to respond, and that's the way it's supposed to be. If you have concerns, go see Brian. And then Brian can reinforce, staff are doing what they're supposed to do. We can reinforce Brian that he's doing what he needs to do. And I would also remind Brian and the others that if there's a team that we know that is not behaving, We need to let Vaha know that because they choose who they invite to these tournaments. And I've talked to a board member who I work with that said, if there's something that's consistent, same way with the hotels, if there's a team that's consistently disrespectful, they just won't ask them to come up anymore. There's plenty of people who want to play in our building, who want to stay here, that will fill that gap immediately. And we have to start taking some ownership and responsibility and supporting the staff as they're doing their job. And I think we took a great step today towards that by saying, hey, here's the extra bodies you need, here's the extra time, and we'll continue to move forward on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Johnson. We do support our staff. I don't think there's anybody here that does not. But a reminder of that is the case. I've been approached by I don't know how many parents with respect to some of the activities that have gone on in there and addressing the same issues that were brought up today. For me, our staff, it's tough for them to have to enforce the rules in there when they have no authority. So they're enforcing the rules. That's why it's so important for us to continue to support them 100%. Because there was an event this past weekend, and staff did what they were supposed to do, try to maintain order, do the responsibilities, tell them, and they were completely ignored. And so that's difficult. And so our staff are put in a tough position there. So when that happens, we have to make sure we have a mechanism in place to try to address it. So I think we're moving toward that. Thanks for bringing that up, Councilor Paulson. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up with respect to item 5 and 6 on the agenda before we adjourn? Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Brian, do we have, it's faded my mind, do we have cameras in that hallway or not? I think
We have cameras everywhere, except for the locker rooms and the bathrooms. But there's not a spot in the public area of that building that you can do something and not be on a camera.
That includes that hallway?
That includes that hall. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras directly in that hallway. That long hallway, there are 4 cameras in that hallway catching multiple angles. So if your back is turned to one camera, your face is turned to another one.
So is anybody reviewing the cameras? To see
Anytime
what
we
they-
have an issue, I have the pleasure of sitting down and reviewing camera footage, recording the camera footage. As the mayor had referred to, we did have one incident that the police did have to investigate. So thanks to our camera footage, we were clearly able to identify the individuals that were associated with that and turn over all that video to the police department, which is unfortunate that that occurred, but that's why we put this camera system into the building, hoping we'd never have to use it. Unfortunately, I've had to use it twice since we opened to investigate things.
Thank you. I'd forgotten if we had put them in that hallway or not. Thank you.
That hallway and every other hallway.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for, you, Jim, for making sure that, we spent the entire morning here listening and talking and vetting out what we need to do. And I think hopefully we've accomplished what you needed to be accomplished here. And so we'll take that to a final vote at tonight's council meeting. So is there anything else that we've discussed on any of these items that need to be discussed before we adjourn our committee of the whole meeting? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess have one other just quick thought.
Is it related to one of these items on the agenda?
Yes, it's related
Okay,
to the
thank
Intro Motors
you.
Event Center.
Thank you. Okay.
Would it be prudent to have maybe a monthly, like one person from the personnel committee having a meeting on site there with you once a month to review what's going on at all? I mean, just to keep in, like we do with the design team or?
I take it a step further. It does, and I wouldn't say that it needs to be an official meeting or anything unless you want it to be. But any of you counselors at any time are welcome to come sit down with myself or Jim. You heard our utility workers today invite you to come job shadow them. We all have open door policies. We're not afraid to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly about the situation. So please come talk to us at any time about not only concerns, but how the building is operating and what areas we can improve on, or what areas you want to hear from us that we need your help to improve on. I'd also like to thank this council today for the actions that you've taken. You've shown that you care about our staff. You're listening to our staff. We greatly appreciate all of the motions that were made today. Hopefully they will all pass here this evening because it will result in a good end product for our facility here in the future.
And I just wanted to leave that more open-ended, just to make sure that we can, that we don't have to wait all the, for coordinating a big personnel committee of the whole meeting. That was kind of my intention, but if it's kind of open at will, and we can all come if we have questions or you have questions, I just want to be open-ended on my part to be approachable as well.
Any of you are also invited Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 1 o'clock. We have a building staff meeting. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 o'clock, we powwow around the table, discuss yesterday we focused a lot on over the weekend's events and how that went, and then gave a brief synopsis of what's upcoming. But at those meetings, we are game planning for what's coming up and reviewing what has happened just recently and how we can improve. So our staff is engaged, and I'd have to say that every single member on our staff wants the best for that building, and everybody has brought forward ideas of how we can improve, which is really encouraging to see. Another thing that I'd like to point out, to publicly brag on the staff, is typically after a large hockey event, in the past, the minors would have looked like it had had a large hockey event and would have been trashed. Yesterday morning, when I walked in the building at a little after 7 o'clock, did it need some attention? Yes, but it looked nothing like the minors did. The staff over the weekend did a tremendous job of keeping up with the building and then cleaning the building to the point that it was presentable for Monday morning. They also busted their humps all day yesterday, getting that building back to where they want to see it, which is where you want to see it as far as cleanliness. So kudos to our staff for going above and beyond the call of duty over this weekend with our largest hockey tournament of 32 teams, 480 players, with each player having an average of 6 spectators. They did a phenomenal job, and I cannot say enough for the job that they did.
What did we make in concession?
Just under $8,000 in concessions over the weekend.
Yeah, it was a great event, some great hockey. It was fun to watch. For me, before we adjourn, you have your meetings on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. From my perspective, that's your meeting. That's your staff meeting. Just like Britt has her staff meeting with all of you. For me to be involved in that, not necessary, because you're going to report to us any issues that you have. This particular meeting, I think, is not something, this was just an anomaly, because we're in the beginning of that. We tried to take care of everything. We looked at the staffing levels. It was important for us to move forward after you made the assessment on how our building operates. We've responded to that, hopefully, and we're going to continue to move forward. We're not going to have these kind of meetings every month, but maybe 6 months from now, we might have another one. But whenever there's an issue, staff reports it, and you've been kept surprised of those things, so I appreciate that too. Anything else come from the council? Okay, no other items to come before the committee of the whole meeting. We will stand adjourned to our council meeting tonight at 5:30. Thank you, everybody.